summit. So we've gone from possibly envy, I'm not sure what the, the overall feeling is, to talking about something completely different. And that is menstrual health and endometriosis, which I'm sure a lot of you in this room probably have some experience with. So to give us a little bit more info on that, we have got Dr. Sarah White. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Jean Hales. And for those that don't know Jean Hales, it is a leading NGO that provides women's health information and education to the general public and also to health professionals. I'm sure Dr. White will tell you that most women reach menopause between the ages of 45 and 55, but here in Australia, the average age for women to reach menopause is 51 to 52. And the symptoms can be endless. So I'm going to let Dr. Sarah White give us a rundown on that.
So today I'm here to talk about the latest on menopause. Let me tell you a little bit first about Jean Hales for Women's Health. So it was named for the late Dr. Jean Hales, who in 1972 started a dedicated menopause clinic. It was the first in Australia and, would you believe, only the second in the world. Dr. Hales believed very strongly that if a woman was well, her family and community would be well. And a key to women staying well was education and information. So that knowledge, information, education is still the foundation of our work today. We gather and synthesise insights from individual women, communities, clinicians and the population at large, and then we shape and mobilise that knowledge for women, for healthcare professionals and for policymakers. Jean Hales doesn't advocate for one disease or solution over another, so we have the privilege really of acting as a connector for women's health efforts. 12 years ago, we started Jean Hales for Women's Health Week, and it was really intended to raise awareness and understanding of women's health issues, which, as we know, is not always there. And we've seen over the past several years in particular a significant and very welcome increase in discussion about menopause, particularly online. And these discussions are really helping us to normalise menopause as an inevitable event in half the population. More importantly, it's creating a really supportive environment for the 1 in 4 women who will experience severe menopause symptoms. We're seeing women calling out those barriers to care, the lack of support, and we're also seeing policy changes that recognise the different and very specific needs of women going through the menopause transition. So some of those top current issues, if you like, some of them aren't new. It's not new that there are challenges related to finding a doctor, not just a GP, who has the knowledge, skills and confidence and desire to provide good menopause care. The latest is we have an Assistant Minister, Jed Carney told you this morning, about marching into the schools the heads of medical schools around Australia and asking them why menopause wasn't part of their standard curricula. The use of menopause hormone therapy by women who would benefit from it is still low. We still have some women and some doctors who have unfounded fears about the long-term side effects of using MHT. And there are new challenges for women who do use MHT, with worldwide shortages and with cost issues making it difficult to access. We have new non-hormonal approaches to managing symptoms, which is terrific. We're having new medicines, new evidence showing the effectiveness of therapy, and even a new and better understanding of how diet and physical activity help. We know that every woman's experience of menopause is different because it's dependent on her own physical and mental health, but also the attitudes of the social and cultural group that she's part of. But we still know embarrassingly little outside the Anglo-Saxon cisgender heterosexual experience. Research on menopause is no surprise to anyone here, underfunded relative to the number of people it affects and the impacts it has on the quality of life. And that's because women's health has been undervalued and underfunded for a century or more. We are starting to see new federal and state-funded clinics, as Jed spoke to this morning. We have the National Women's Health Advisory Council, and I'm a proud member of that. And we have, as a result, our largest funding bodies sitting up and starting to take notice of the inequities. One of the latest things is that it's becoming very apparent that we need to combat gendered ageism associated with menopause. Women live a third or more of their lives now, and we have women coming into the clinics in their late 40s saying, it can't be perimenopause, I'm not old. So we have to do something about it. We have to do things like the popular culture still often presenting the menopausal woman as either desperately morose or, in inverted commas, acting crazy. One of the very latest issues when it comes to menopause is a massive rise in misinformation and disinformation. It's very much a problem when the worst experiences of menopause are being presented as the unilateral experience, and misinformation about symptoms and treatments are being shared, sometimes with the best intentions, but sometimes not. And some of this is underpinned by a huge menopause market. We are increasingly seeing commercial interests attempting to hijack the discourse by portraying it as a terrible problem that can be fixed by purchasing products or programs. We have businesses capitalising what should be under there is your menopause energy bars, your menopause almond chocolates, your wellness programs, and of course, supplements. These products are also feeding into that gendered ageism, by the way, because they're often promoting youth. More energy, less wrinkles, all sorts of things like that. Now, marketing strategies that are driving or trying to drive sales by exaggerating the severity of menopause symptoms or presenting the very worst case as the universal experience are increasing anxiety and fear about menopause. We are starting to see women in specialist clinics like the Gene House clinics in Victoria, the menopause hubs here in New South Wales, and all sorts of comments and questions on our social media. Women are starting to fear menopause. And some of these marketing strategies are not just selling pills, lotions and potions to individuals. They're selling narratives that have the potential to increase stigma and discrimination against midlife women, all in the name of making a buck. And that leads me to the other most significant and latest issue in menopause, which is both good and bad. The bad is, if you listen to some groups selling programs or services, you would think that most women fall off a productivity cliff or leave the workforce in droves as soon as they hit menopause. And that's just what we need, right? Another reason for our employers and colleagues to look askance at women of a certain age. In fact, the latest data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows the increase in female workforce participation in Australia over the past 30 years has been dominated overall by postmenopausal women. That's the brown line. And 40 to 49-year-old women, most of whom are likely to be experiencing menopausal symptoms, have had the highest workforce participation over the past 30 years, and it's still increasing. Other ABS data show that Australian women are retiring on average at 63 years of age. So that's a bit over a decade after the average age of menopause at 51. These are population level figures. So of course there are individual women who are affected by menopause symptoms that impact their participation in the workforce. And that's probably around about 15% who say they have a moderate ability and 3% say they have a poor ability to work. There are undoubtedly programs that are helping women in the workplace, but they do need to stick with truth in advertising. And we all need to be careful about creating or perpetuating the false belief that most women will be so affected that their ability to work and function are impaired, because that's an incredibly dangerous narrative. On the flip side, this is the good, in fact it's the great. We are finally talking about how health issues affect women's equality in Australia. It's amazing that we have started considering menopause in the context of workforce participation and economic security in the same way we're talking about the gender pay gap in the context of economic security. And right now there's a Senate inquiry that's looking at how menopause affects women in the workforce. Jean Hale's argument is that we need to take a systematic, careful and evidence-based approach to mitigate these impacts, and we must recognise that menopause is but one gendered health issue. As we've discussed today, women's health issues are not just those that affect women only or behind the bikini line. Menopause isn't even the most significant of the issues that affect women only. The 2023 National Women's Health Survey conducted by Jean Hales has shown that pelvic pain and heavy, irregular or painful periods affect far more Australian women and have a greater impact on workability, and that affects young women even more. So why would I raise the context of other gendered health issues when I'm talking about menopause? Well, recently, Donald Trump's running mate produced another doozy of a crack at women by agreeing with an interviewer that there was one purpose for postmenopausal women, and that was to care for grandchildren. And this not only gave rise to my new favourite meme, it made me reflect on what the focus on menopause means more broadly for all Australian women, no matter their age. I happen to think that the latest in menopause is that we have a critical mass of women. Hold for the unknown creator. We have a critical mass of incredible women who have stepped into positions of leadership and positions of power in Australia, and they're actively raising their voices about gendered health issues, just like all of you in this room. And so people impacted by menopause are not the only group that are going to be liberated by this rebellion, and it's being led by perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. So that is how we're going to address gendered health issues and achieve gender equality. Thank you.